The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Monday, April 16th, Tuesday, April 17th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair right here in the Great White North in the Caribou region, on top of the snowy mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. Hasn't stopped snowing for about 17 hours here. Keeps falling. We're at about 4 more inches. Come on! So, yesterday I was barbecuing in my backyard in my open fire pit. Not today. We are 150,000 strong nightly on WQEE 99 Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We're also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, and check us out on The Fringe FM. Great programming at thefringe.fm. We're all over social media. You know where to find us. Just type in Spaced Out Radio. We're live Monday through Friday on periscope.tv as well. You can check out our YouTube channel. Please hit the subscribe button to that. YouTube.com/Spaced Out Radio for our archives. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. You can do a little shopping at our store. Read up on the encounter online dealing with everything paranormal, strange, and odd. Check out my latest blog, a tribute to Art Bell. And we got great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. We're kicking off a new week here. Let's get the energy up. Let's get it all pumped up. Let's get this thing going. as we got a great show to kick off this Monday. We kick off another week on this show with one of our regulars around these parts. Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers, based out of Bakersfield, California, joins us tonight to give us some insight, that is, into the field of unidentified flying objects. Tim has a very popular YouTube channel, of course, called UFO Seekers, where he, along with his better and much prettier half, Tracy, head out to look for the strange stories to see what they can find from the people who tell them about it. His treks have taken him from Area 51 to the mountains in between and even onto military bases. Tonight with Tim, we're going to get into a really cool investigation that he just finished up in the mountains of California, searching for what seems to be a Bigfoot. Yes, we're also going to take a look at the latest controversial resignation from MUFON, Tim's visit to NAS La Conner, where a certain pilot who witnessed a UFO was once stationed, and we'll also start off by talking about the impact of the legend and pioneer Art Bell and what he meant to the UFO community. Tim Doyle, always a great time to have you on the air, my friend. How are you?
Very good, Dave, and it's great to be here.
You know, it's really weird, Tim, because it seems like the last 3 or 4 months, 5 months, going back now, maybe longer now, every time we're about to have you on the air, some sort of breaking news jumps out at us. And this past weekend, it happened to be the untimely passing of legendary radio broadcaster in the paranormal, Art Bell, who passed away Friday the 13th at the age of 72, and God rest his soul. You know that he was an amazing, amazing man. Do you remember the first time you heard Art Bell?
Oh my gosh, it was, at one time I was actually a dental technician, and I did that for a few years for the world's biggest dental laboratory. I made gold crowns and did like full wax ups and stuff like that. And I was commuting back and forth a long ways, and gosh, I get off work super late, and that's when I listened to Art Bell. I had to be in my teens, I believe, because I actually left high school early to work and became a dental technician. So yeah, I mean, it's like that's the person I think everybody grew up listening to, and like a lot of people have said, opened the door for a lot of people who've come after.
And I think you're absolutely right about that, Tim. I mean, he was such a pioneer doing this and getting into these topics when there was no internet, where he was the only voice on the airwaves talking about the weird and strange topics that seem to be such a daily occurrence to you and I and the people who listen to these shows. I mean, really, it all started with him, didn't it?
Yeah, and, radio was so popular back then. Of course, it's changed so much now with the internet, so that's back before all the computers, the personal computers and all the mobile devices. And so radio was quite a big deal, so to have those certain time slots constant and running that 7-day-a-week show, I mean, it was right? Because that's even before Ancient Aliens or anything like that. I mean, you could almost argue a lot of that stuff spun off, and the whole TV genre spun off of Art Bell. So, yeah, he's definitely a pioneer. And, of course, he was a ham radio operator, which is something I like to study. I'm definitely always got my head into books studying radio frequencies and what ham operators do, because it's actually it's a big part of technology and flying aircraft and radar systems. So, that's what was great about Art Bell, is he took the time to do things like get the ham operator's license. And I know that's kind of what he was doing before he passed, was broadcasting on a ham radio show. And I guess it was very popular. And I was hoping to listen to it, but I never was able to catch it. Yeah, what a pioneer, right?
And you know what? There are so few of us, my friend, who are out there who can say that they pioneered something. I mean, radio has been around for 100 years, but, political talk has always been there. Sports has always been there. News has always been there. Traffic and weather have always been there. but when it comes to the subgenres, I mean, he started it all. He is what made, digital broadcasting a format. I mean, we talk about how many people have their own radio shows or online shows or podcasts these days. It's phenomenal. And, I mean, you could look at him as a genius for noticing the ratings going up and spiking huge when he started talking about UFOs or conspiracies or things like that, or you can look at him as somebody who was very, very, attuned to his audience. You know what I'm saying? Where he knew what they wanted to hear, and by golly, he was going to play that game. He was absolutely going to play that game because he knew that's what people wanted to hear. So, I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal that he took advantage of it. He had the brilliancy to understand what was going on, and we have him to thank for everything that we have done in this field. And I think it's great. I don't think he would have, if you would have said in the mid-90s that this would take off the way it has, I don't believe for a second Art would tell you that it's all because of him. I think he was probably, from what I heard, a pretty humble guy about that. But in reality, it is all about Art. It really is.
Yeah, and he's definitely being out on the road and meeting people face to face every day. Art Bell is definitely the name that gets dropped the most by people who are coming up to ask me questions or to talk about an experience or even to make fun of me. At least the number one name that everybody knows is Art Bell. Just with, so look at that. They see UFO Seekers, and one of the first names they think about is Art Bell. So
you're absolutely right. Do you have a favorite story of listening to Coast back in the day? One or two that just kind of sit with you?
Yeah, there's this one where he has like a female guest, and it's an older lady, and she claims to be a witch. And so she's talking about like cursing people, and Art Bell's listening to her and going, "Oh my God, wow." So it was just nice to see the way he gave respect to each guest and the story they were telling, and he wouldn't. And the greatest thing is, if he had a Christian pastor on the day before, he wouldn't spend his time defending the political views of the last guest or the next guest or the views of the one guest against another guest. And it was just about the person on. And there never seemed to be an agenda from day to day. Art Bell liked to do his own thing, and I don't think anybody ever really had control of his format or what he wanted to talk about, and it seemed like it was open to everyone, and to every side of the debate, And so he's listening to this witch lady talk about being able to curse people and doing bad things to them, and there's bad witches out there, and that's something I really enjoy listening to because I like that mystery, and you can picture it in your mind like a dark room in a cathedral, and there's candles, and there's people in dark black robes holding a candle, and they're all, doing their secret society thing, and, sacrificing a bird or something and pouring the blood into a potion, to do a curse on someone. So, it's cool, imaginative stuff. And I believe that some of that stuff's probably real,
I tell you, my friend, I still remember the first time I heard the sounds of hell. And it was something that absolutely freaked me out. Freaked me out so bad. I remember driving down the road and, hearing this sound, and I was actually staring at my radio with my hands at 10 and 2, just trying to make sure that I did not, go off the road on anything, I didn't want to get myself in trouble while driving, but that's the impact that he had. He made you stare at the radio because you never knew what was going to be happening or what kind of freakiness was going to keep you up all night. So, I mean, it's something that I absolutely cherished about the man and the stories. I mean, and he knew some of them were fake coming in. He totally did. I mean, how could you not? I mean, eventually people fessed up to a lot of the stories, like the pilot flying into Area 51 or the guy in the telephone booth saying that he worked at Area 51 and they were coming to get him. You know, I mean, there was just so much going on with that, you know. So, I mean, he always had us at the edge of his seats. He knew how to play the audience, which was so beneficial to what he was trying to do, don't you think?
Yeah, and plus he had probably the most epic radio voice imaginable. I mean, it was incredible. It should go down in, like, history. If there's some kind of, like, Hall of Fame or awards, like, Art Bell should definitely be a Hall of Fame award winner.
Well, he is in the Broadcast Hall of Fame in the United States. In 2008, he was inducted. But, I mean, I look at our following here, and I don't think we have a single person who follows us these days who literally doesn't know or didn't listen to Art Bell. It's phenomenal. Right. It's phenomenal how many people, you know, still respect him. And, you know, the unfortunate part was, Tim, there's a lot of people hoping that he would come back on the air. One last hurrah, one final run for a year or two. And, you know, obviously with his health declining, maybe he knew about it, maybe he didn't. You know, it was just something that never got he never had the ability to do. But, I mean, I look at it as how lucky were we going back 20 years to be able to listen to this guy, a legend brewing right before our own eyes in a topic that was so obtuse that the mainstream today still doesn't give it much credibility.
Yeah. Well, it's a funny game, you know. I mean, a lot of times, you know, there's mainstream individuals or, you know, kind of people on the top who have control who don't want to give anybody else, you know, any props or, you know, any free advertising. So, you know, they'll talk about the stories, or the mainstream media will cover a story in the way they want, but the goal is to not promote the person who's actually created the, you know, the content, because then it helps that person grow. So I think a lot of the times you just have, you know, people who are concerned with their own ratings and controlling the way people think about the subjects too. I mean, it's better for the mainstream media to cover this topic and kind of make fun of it and laugh and joke at the end, because then you don't have people questioning things, you know, and that they just go on to the next pre-made story they're reading off the teleprompter. So,
well, there's a lot of people heard about this, Tim, and you know what? I said this in my blog at spacedoutradio.com, you know, Art had incredibly large shoes for any of us to fill. You know what I'm saying? Like, they were massive, these shoes that he had us try and fill. And, you know, I feel sorry for the people in the community who are doing their best in order to try and get things going and try and do their own thing, because the harsh criticism that comes down from a lot of people, oh, you're just an Art Bell wannabe, or you're just, you know, somebody who wants to, you know, or is trying to play the copycat role. You don't know what you're doing. You've heard them all, Tim. I mean, I think we all have, you know, because people want art. They really want art, and you can't blame them for that.
Yeah, but, you know, I've never really gotten that before, you know, because I think it's definitely good to, you know, just have a vision for your own thing and create something unique, you know, so it doesn't give people that slide in to say something like that. But, I mean, and you can't listen to negative criticisms, you know, so a lot of the times, like, man, I get, you know, a lot of positive comments, but there's always a percentage, and there's negative people who say negative things, and it's just not about even reading or engaging with stuff like that, you know, because a lot of it's about having just a positive attitude. and seeing a vision with an end goal and having the confidence to stand up and do something. And, the thing is too, is if you don't have any enemies, then you're not really doing anything. You develop enemies, and I think I have more than anyone at this point in this, UFO community, which we're not really included. UFO Seekers is kind of put outside in its own little box, and that's okay, because usually people have enemies because there's some type of good product or good content, or something new or a different idea that threatens certain individuals, and it's all about monopolizing, people's eyeballs. So that's okay. That just means that whatever is going on is really good, So I think people should just keep that in mind. You're not doing anything good if you haven't developed some enemies, because there's nobody getting threatened by anything you're doing, and a lot of the times I feel like we've developed more enemies based on our moral standing on events that have happened in the UFO community. It's not like I've ever received one apology letter or message about being 100% about the Tom DeLonge and To the Stars Academy whole debacle, where I up front told everyone it was just a book and media publishing company, and here they are announcing the next book. It wasn't a surprise. It was, people have kind of these idols or people they worship in this community, and a lot of the times their words are taken like it's the Bible or it's Jesus Christ speaking, from the top of the Temple Mount. But unfortunately, it's not that way. We're all human beings, and we all have faults, and sometimes greed overtakes, moral, some kind of moral responsibility to the truth. And I think money overshadows that for a lot of people. So it's about, trying to do your own thing and blocking those things out. And if there's anybody trying to grow anything in this community, it should, it's going to work if you're doing it for the right reason. So if you like doing it and you're passionate for the truth, when I was studying like theology, I learned from pastors that, if you were trying to like grow so let's say you just believed in Christianity, and let's just assume I was a Christian, the first thing I tell you that if you wanted to grow your Christian church is just read the Bible. It wouldn't be to like add in your own commentary and kind of give your own opinion. It seems like for thousands of years, people have a lot of people around the world believe in what's written in that book. And if you're going to teach about it, you should just read from the book. And it seems like, people who do that, their or their churches seem to do well, and they're just teaching what Jesus Christ taught, and that's just like we're just off on a religious, kind of a rant here, not being serious at all, but just giving perspective, So I think if you're doing something in the paranormal or the UFO community and you're doing it for the right reasons and you're just relaying truth. So for instance, like in our videos, we're taking people to places, explaining what's going on, never drawing conclusions, because it's not my goal to be, a definitive answer for a lot of these questions. I just see my job as relaying what's going on and being a journalist. So I take it serious. I go out and video the spot, show the people from different angles, spend time there, talk to people in the community. Every single one of my videos, I have interviews I've done with people in the local area that I don't include, and it's talking to those people and figuring out what's going on and then relaying what's going on. And there's no addition of I'm adding in something because it's going to be clickbait-ish. And at the same time, like a news show on television doing something outlandish, like covering murders constantly, or some type of political topic that's going to enrage you. So it means I'm going to have more ratings because the topic is enraging. I think it's about just covering truth, and there's like a new era coming, and I think it's kind of a side effect of the internet, because when a lot of these communities kind of started in the 80s, in that Art Bell time, and it spurred this new generation, but it's a new era, and the era is sourcing information, and kind of back in the day, you used to be able to make claims or talk about something and no one could source anything because there wasn't the internet. And so it's kind of revolutionized the sharing of information and people's ability to learn about a topic. I mean, for instance, human beings shouldn't even ask a question anymore to another human being. And if they do, it should be about the other person, because every question could be answered on Google. Hey, I need to change my oil in my car. I ask Google. Oh, I need to fix my drywall. I ask Google. You know, I just changed some light switches in my house, so I just wanted to watch someone do it. I just did the eaves and the facial boards on the house, you know, sanded them and repainted them. So you go on Google and ask Google a question. And that's because, you know, we have that source information to get the truth so that we can do it ourselves. You know, I knew what paints to buy, what grit sandpapers to get, and I bought the right orbital square sander instead of an orbital, you know, and all that information is intake from that internet. So I think there are individuals who are kind of laying over or evolving from the old era into this new era, where their claims can be sourced. And I think a lot of people are having trouble making that switch. And that was the great thing about Zach Bagans and Ghost Adventures was, you know, of course there's a TV aspect to it, and I make films, so I can understand filmmaking. And I've talked to a lot of producers, and I've actually done work in the past for TV. One of my family members used to run equipment to TV shows. You know, so I've seen the filmmaking process, and I've been a part of it in news. I've done debates before, like on television for news channels in Burbank, California. And so, you know, you can see that editing process. And so Zach Bagans kind of changed that and took people to places and showed them for themselves to make up their own minds. And the initial documentary that came out, I remember that, the 2-hour documentary from, I believe they went to the Goldfield Hotel. Was that it, Dave? Do you remember?
Think so.
Yes, right. And they went to that hotel and they walk up the stairs, and the brick and the big 2x4 or the big piece of wood get thrown across the room. And so that's like the difference, is showing people something, and video had changed. So it's not some old school 480p VHS camcorder. You know, we're talking about like 1080p equipment now, so you can actually see these objects in the dark. And now we have new technologies like infrared. And, you know, just trap cameras alone for catching deer and wildlife can be used for like Bigfoot hunting. And so we have this new change in this new era, and I think it's a lot about people trying to find their niche. And I'm a marketing professional at heart, and that's what I did late in my career. I spent many years, you know, over a decade doing marketing. And if I was going to give advice to anybody who was working in the business community, it's always about finding a niche, even if we're in you know, a very diluted market with lots of competition. It's about finding the niche product or service that has a demand that we can fill. And everybody needs to kind of find that demand and fill it for the audience that's there to intake the content. And that's it, you know, and if they're just telling the truth and being true to themselves, then I can just see it growing because it's doing good anyways. So I have that view about the world, like a karmic view, I guess you could say, that if you do good things will happen to you. And it means the road will be rough, though. So if you're doing good things in life, the road's going to be rough, you know, but the outcome is just that much more valuable, because everything in life that comes easy, it has no value. You know, everything in life that is worth something, it was hard to get. And that's what makes it worth something.
I'm going to just wrap it up with the Art Bell thing here with you, Tim. Do you think that art's impact on this field will continue for another number of years, or do you see that the torch has been passed over to a multitude of people here?
I see it being like the War of the Worlds broadcast, you know, from way back. I believe it was like the 30s or the 40s. I think it was the 40s, and it was George Orwell. You know, I see it being like that, something that's so epic, like Art Bell will seriously live forever. So if Elon Musk ever really gets to send some people to Mars, I guarantee they'll be listening to David Bowie and Art Bell on their way there.
That's probably one of the best ways to put it, my friend. One of the best ways to put it right there. Nice way to end that. Let's move on here. Recently, you just released a new video on UFO Seekers YouTube channel and UFOseekers.com about the experimental forest in California. What is this all about? What were you looking for?
Right. Well, we got a report from an individual, and it went all the way back to 1975 was the incident date. And he grew up in Glendora, California, which is just 20 miles northeast of Los Angeles. And so, like, north of LA is a big mountain range, you know. And of course, here in Bakersfield, we live close to the Sierra Nevada mountains, which contains like Yosemite Park and such. Well, that runs all the way down and kind of like runs into the mountains that run across the top of LA. So they're real steep. In fact, the range and the mountains I was at in the video, the biggest mountain peak there that I show people, Mount San Antonio, is over 10,000 feet. And this individual grew up in the foothills of this mountain range, and him and his friends were up in the forest, and it's called Big Dalton Canyon where they're at. And Big Dalton Canyon was inside the boundaries of what's known as the experimental forest, and this one's called the San Dimas Research Center Experimental Forest. And it's run by the United States Department of Agriculture now, in a joint venture with the U.S. Forest Service. But it was built way back in the 30s when it was a lot less access up there. And this forest is supposedly a place where they kind of monitor the climate. And the weird thing is it has like underground rooms and doors. And in fact, in the video that we posted, you could see the doors that lead you underground, and it's going like underneath trees and stuff. So it's really weird. It's not like these trees would just be sitting on the roof. So they definitely have like some underground rooms going on. And supposedly they monitor like the water cycle and when there's fires in the area, you know, but that's kind of just the cover that they give it, because of course that was back in the wartime. So of course they'd use any excuse they'd want. And back in the 30s, trust me, the U.S. government wasn't as concerned about the environment as they are now. So it's not like it is now. And so this individual that contacted us was up with a few friends in Big Dalton Canyon below the forest. And it was getting dark, but they wanted to take a hike. They went there all the time, like after school. And I believe they had like just graduated. So they were there at Big Dalton Canyon, and they hiked about 3/4 of a mile up into the forest, where they stopped and just, you know, had a view from up there. It's a cool view of like LA suburbs, and you can even see downtown LA, like the buildings from up there. And that's when all of a sudden, you know, the sun's going down and they start hearing what sounds like boulders like being dropped from a tree, or like boulders being thrown like in the air. And they can feel it, you know, like that Jurassic Park movie, you know, they hear like this boom, and they can like feel it and hear it, and they start tripping out. And the noise starts getting bigger, or starts getting louder, and starts, you know, less time in between the booms. So it sounds like it's getting closer. And all of a sudden they notice something running out of like the bushes, or running through like the bushes and cracking and breaking tree branches down. And that's when they all stand up and start running, because of course, back then you'd have like the threat of bears. I mean, even if you go there right now, and of course the suburbs have built up to the forest, they still have mountain lion signs. And it says, you know, don't leave children unattended on the trails up in the hills, because there's mountain lions, and the mountain lions always come down and get like dogs, you know, pet dogs and cats of people, from people. And so these guys, I mean, they see something running through the forest, they immediately start running back down to where the car's parked. And the gentleman we have talked to was the person at the back. So they're all running down the hill, and he's at the back, and he feels the breath of this thing come right up onto the back of him, and he can feel it like blowing on him, that it's so close. And this thing is like running through the forest, right, breaking like the trees and branches, and they get to the bottom of the hill. And that's when, as soon as they run out onto the road where it like opens up and there's no more trees or anything like that, That's when the creature or whatever it is, all he knew was that it had 2 feet. That's all he knows. He knows it was like over 10 feet tall, and it had 2 feet. And so they get to their car, and they're unlocking the car, and that's when he looks, because he's just a passenger, and he sees the dark shadow, because it's dark and dusk, poking out of, like looking out of some cattails. So it kind of like takes some cattails and it bends them down, and this over 10-foot black shadowy creature, whatever it is, super soldier, whatever you want to call it, Bigfoot. And he didn't want to say, what it is specifically, is just standing there staring through the cattails. And that's when they got in the car and jammed out of there, and they never went back after that, still living in the area.
When you go into one of those situations where you hear a story, Tim, I know you try and do things scientifically, but every now and again we always have to follow that gut feeling. Do you ever kind of feel what that person was feeling at that time who gave you that story? Because, to hear a story like that, a first-hand account, and you go back into the area, do you ever feel a little bit more wary or on guard?
Well, of course. And I would never say that, like, what I'm doing is like scientific, because science, you have to like be able to like test things. And if it's unknown, right, we don't even know like what we're looking for. In fact, I had an individual send me a picture, and it had, it's from a trap camera, and it shows an animal, and there's a reflection in the eye of one of these animals. And it looks like a face, like some kind of like gremlin alien face. And so, I have no problem, telling people or showing people this. But the individual got, upset when I wouldn't say it was a face. So, I really do try to like relate to the story. But I'm like a mystery lover. So, and I'm like scared of the forest. I mean, Tracy is the one who is the hunter, grew up, on a ranch, and she would take 7-day trips horseback and go, looking for animals, and just staying out in the forest. So she's used to seeing, she's seen before like a moose stand up on 2 legs and be 14 feet tall and kicking a tree. And one time she saw it just perfect, where there was like a full moon behind a moose that she saw, and it looked really creepy. So, while I do try to stay without definitively making conclusions, but at the same time, I definitely wouldn't say it's scientific, and definitely at the same time, I'm doing exactly what you're talking about, is just trying to be in that person's shoes, accepting it as truth while I'm out investigating it, because I have no choice if I want to get to the bottom of what's going on, So if I was a reporter and someone gave me some information, my job would be to go investigate the information. So I'd have to start asking people about it. And I think it's just, that same journalist process. And I definitely was lucky enough to work as a government writer. I covered like planning commissions and city councils, and actually got to work for like a local news media organization where the editor was a professor at a very prolific college here in California. So it was nice to get to work under somebody and cover government, and then, writing about complicated processes. And one time I even managed to expose an issue in a candidate who resigned the day after I wrote an article. And so it's nice to have, that valuable impact of you getting something real, but you definitely have to take it serious if you're, going to write something legitimate about it. So.
In that video for Experimental Forest, you do a lot of looking around, and I noticed in that video you actually had a couple people come up to you and say, hey, bud, you need to be checking this certain area or that certain area. Does that happen often, where when people see the car or see what you're doing, that automatically they want to immediately help you out and say, no, you're in the wrong spot?
It's like a 50-50 thing, because some people are offended by just saying that UFOs, or even, giving it credibility, because some people think the phenomenon may be demonic, or paranormal. So of course they have religious beliefs, and it may, I don't want to say offer a challenge to it, but it's a different viewpoint. But yeah, people are really nice, but I think more than anything is the exposure. So it's not really a place we go where people haven't seen us before. So I think we've at least reached the exposure point here in the United States that people recognize us everywhere we go. So even when we took our Laughlin investigation, when we were in Bullhead City, Arizona, we stopped the car and we're like in a residential area trying to find like our way to the other side of the river, and like the first car that goes by, the guy stops and he's like, "Dude, I just watched your video today." So, and it's nice to like shake their hand, and we give people stickers and stuff. But that's, I think, what's different about, it's really easy to talk about a subject and not have to face responsibility. And so having those face-to-face interactions definitely makes you think twice about what you're able to say. So, here in Bakersfield, it's a small community. We probably only have 50,000 people, and that's tiny, in California. So it's a very small community. And of course, my neighbors know me and lots of people in town, because it's a small town. So there's reputation to be had, but that's what we like about it, and that's what makes it more media-like, and that's why over time, hopefully, people see UFO Seekers as a rational place to offer, offer good perspective that's not leading to mistruth because there's backroom deals going on, or just giving in to the celebrities, who have all the power. And that's just a big problem in this community. It's, sometimes I wonder if some of these individuals are going to have a WWF moment. There was a time when people thought the World Wrestling Federation was 100% true, and these guys were like, full on wrestling. And there came a time when, certain things got exposed and people realized that a lot of it was set up and they were storylines for entertainment. And that's what television does. I mean, you have shows like Operation Repo. You can't legally film somebody, and no one's going to let you have permission to film them when you're repossessing their car. So if you go online and do some research, there's definitely a disclaimer, and it tells you that, a lot of those repo shows, you can go to the disclaimer online and see that they're just made for entertainment purposes and reenacting what they say are true stories, and it's not a debate about that, of course. I mean, those people on there are highly experienced, but, that's what television and Hollywood, they really don't care. There's no moral responsibility, and there's no one to answer to. So someone in Hollywood can make a big movie or a big television show that's very popular, and they can just go to certain events and really moderate who comes and what opinions can be expressed, and there's no debate like there is in pretty much every other industry on earth. I mean, you got to love the British House of Commons. I mean, it's the greatest place for debate. So
when you are in one of these areas, and somebody gives you some advice on where there's a good spot, do you take it with a grain of salt, or do you take it like they are genuinely trying to help you out, maybe rather than get you out of their own area?
Every single thing I would take true, undoubtedly. So if anybody has like a report or a tip, or if they think it has no value, and, I know a lot of the UFO groups say there's no value to these things, but I really see them as valuable, and their stories are valuable. So I intake everything as truth, and then I visit the locations, and more than not, visiting the locations repeatedly to see if we can see the same thing that the person observed. And it could be anything from seeing, double, triple satellites, or, I've seen 5 satellites at once before, but who's to say it's satellites? You're seeing lights in the sky, and people say, like 100%. This is a scientific explanation. Just because it's a light in the sky that moves like a satellite, yes, it's probable it could be a satellite, but it doesn't mean it's a satellite because you can't even see it. But that's like the debunking community. So even they're like off the rails. Oh, you see the light in the sky, it's a satellite. And it's like, bro, how do you know that's a satellite? Show me the picture. What are you talking about? Yes, you're offering an opinion and the probability is more likely, but it doesn't leave the question unopened, for any other. It could be the Boeing X-37B. How do you know it's not that? And if it's midnight, there's no satellite reflecting sunlight when the sunlight's not even going to that area of space because the sun's directly behind the earth, So people should know that too. If they see something between like 11 p.m. to, 2 a.m., somewhere in there, it's highly likely it's not a satellite because they're not reflecting light at those times. But we have been to places where weird things have happened, and especially the Sierra Nevada mountains is by far the most active place we've ever been, and is not covered at all, by any of the anything we'd see in the mainstream. It doesn't even come up. But as far as we're concerned, it's 100,000 times more active than Area 51. And whatever is there is either experimental, or if someone wants to say it's from another planet, and, there's that unopened question, hey, is it from another planet? But, there's circular drones, or there's circular alien drones, or whatever you want to say it is. There's something there that's unexplained. And that was verified, and that verified stories that we had gotten from individuals there, that they were seeing circular orbs, that they'd see orbs at night. In the video that we posted about Hobo Campground, the one individual talks about the dam, and people would see things coming out of the dam. And they had been sitting at a restaurant and they saw a light come out of the lake. That lake, Lake Isabella, is extremely active. People always are claiming.
I'm going to cut you off right there on Hobo Campground because I got that listed for us to talk about. That's a weird story, man. Weird story. So don't give out any more about that, So, but I understand with what you're saying. You have to investigate all of these spots. You have to investigate the claims. But when you're on the road and you are, say, at a spot where you have a report and somebody drives up to you, Tim, and says, hey, I need you to go up this mountain 5 miles because there's some weird stuff happening up there. How do you know they're not just pulling your leg to get you out of an area?
Well, why would I even go? I mean, the first thing is to not take direction from anyone. So no one can come up to me and say, go here, and I'll go. So, and trust me, I have a live phone number and people can call, and I've gotten people who've called and said activities are going on at Area 51, go now. But I'm not just going to do that, So you have to be willing to take the risk to listen to these things, but being able to decipher it, I think, is one of the most important aspects of it, but you can't think anyone's story is Looney Tunes, or why would anybody even want to share a story? So, anyone who shares anything, I intake it, I believe it, I will go to that place, but I'm never going to go there and tell someone when I'm going, because whatever's happening is either random or planned, and how can anyone... you can't tell anyone you're going, so it's got to be a mystery and remain that way, and then you just show up out of the blue. And that I think is a big thing. I mean, you can plan to go here and see a UFO at this place at this time when I'm on one trip, and it's definitely not how anybody's reports or this phenomenon seems to be. So I would never claim to be someone who can be like, okay, you're ready to go on a UFO trip? We're going to see one tonight. That would be such a blatant misrepresentation of what is going on. And even the people who report these things have one sighting their entire life. And it's literally like that, completely random. But we have been lucky enough to probably catch a handful of things that seem extremely weird. And it's over years of going every single night, or sky watching every single night, and just getting I just filled up another 3 terabyte hard drive. It only lasted 2 months, a 3 terabyte hard drive. So You know, I'm stacking up 3 terabyte hard drives all over the place, and I barely ever catch anything. But it has to be taken that serious to deliver something serious. And I would expect like an investigative journalist working at a proper newspaper to kind of be doing the same thing. But I do think it's that seriousness, you know, that enabled us to receive an invitation from a Navy base, you know, to go on a base. So
we're going to get to that part in hour number 2. In regards to the experimental forest, you know, there was a couple different peaks that you went and took a look at up there. What were you searching for up there? What were you trying to get to?
No, just looking for any anomalies. I mean, that place is really overgrown from what it was back in the 70s when Don was up there and had the experience. For instance, people can see that we showed Morris Dam Reservoir, which was located west of the experimental forest, which used to be a U.S. naval ballistics range, where they would test torpedoes and rockets. In fact, in 1942, that's where Caltech teamed up with a U.S. Navy individual, and they took 6 rockets up there and put them into torpedoes up there. They were trying to figure out how many bubbles, or if there was bubbles coming from the torpedoes, because they didn't want them to be detected. So they went up to this place called Morris Reservoir, which was just for the waterworks. And that's where they tested these 6 torpedoes. And of course, the first 5 torpedoes that they launched under the water all emitted bubbles, but the 6th one didn't. And so the Navy was very curious on why that happened. And the funny thing was that 6th rocket/torpedo actually flew out of the water, and it landed on the shoreline. And lucky for them, it didn't catch fire, because that's a highly dangerous zone. You can't even smoke cigarettes if you're a cigarette smoker. They have signs that say no smoking in these mountains. They're that flammable. I had like 5 fire helicopters fly over. And so this torpedo rocket flies out of the reservoir and lands on the shoreline, and that triggered them to develop the submarine water-to-air ICBM, the first one. So that's where that idea came from. And after that, the Navy turned that into a ballistics range. They put a 150-foot tower on the dam, and then they put a variable angle launcher. In our video, you can see the concrete slide that still remains. Gosh, it's like 200 feet tall.
I'd like to crazy carpet that,
and
no
so,
offense.
yeah. So, you know, there was a lot of military activity. Of course, the Navy abandoned that site in 1993, and now it's unfortunately it's been contaminated with dangerous chemicals. People can read about it in the early 2000s Los Angeles Times article. But we really try to pair, if we're in a specific area, like some military activity that might be a trigger. And that's what we believe. Morris Dam Reservoir, from the military documentation that I managed to get, of course, I superimposed pictures of the equipment on actual pictures of the reservoirs so people can see what it looks like, which was a first. And of course, that reservoir is popular. So we like to do stuff like that. But from the documentation, it said that they did store explosives there, which definitely leaves the door open for underground areas. And so we were definitely pondering if the experimental forest connects to this Navy ballistics range, and it was connected underground, because part of Don's story, the person who witnessed the strange thing that chased him out of the forest, would constantly see perfectly dressed U.S. Navy people drive up in blacked out vans, entering a gate in Big Dalton Canyon, which said experimental forest, but only the Navy people would enter, and Don wouldn't see where they went. And he believed that they were going underground. And so when we go up the mountain, that specific time, you know, I am looking for like UFOs at all times. I mean, that's what it's all about, is UFO seekers. So you're not going to see me take like a Finding Bigfoot, you know, because I'm not a Bigfoot hunter, you know, so it's not what I do. Go running off into the forest, you know, and I don't even have probably things or know about that, and it's not what I do. So, you know, I am up there using full spectrum, and I am using thermal cameras and visual cameras, taking a lot of still photography, and I am looking for anything that is moving around. And I did meet with people up there and ask them if they've ever seen any Bigfoot type creatures. And basically I'm just looking for anything anomalous that might show up. So, I don't expect to be, if I start trying to go look for Bigfoot, then I'm going to have Bigfoot critics, and I'm not trying to step on any toes. So, and in fact, the witness, made a point to not say it was a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. It was just something or some creature, or, I've had government people tell me that don't be surprised if it's not just a trick by the government. These kids are up in this forest. They've gotten too close to this underground facility. So the government does something so radical and crazy, like throwing boulders at you, that you think there's some creature up there. And so you're never going to go again. So
that would be obvious. That would be a smart move. What a way. If they have spotters, but that makes complete sense. If they have spotters all over the mountains of a secret base where they're doing testings on torpedoes at the time, why wouldn't they have people out there maybe dressed in giant Bigfoot outfits running around the forest? It seems logical to me.
Yeah, they could just be in ghillie suits, right? They could just be in a ghillie suit, right?
Absolutely. My friend, I'm going to get you to hold on because we are just about 10 seconds away from hopping out for our first break of the night. Tim Doyle from UFOseekers.com. His YouTube channel, UFO Seekers. If you haven't subscribed to that, I highly suggest you do. And check out UFOseekers.com as well. Make sure you understand that Tim is here the third Monday of every month, talking everything UFOs. We're going to get more into the experimental forest. We're going to get into a little bit of MUFON, what it's like being a UFO hunter on a Navy base, and so much more coming up in hour number 2.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey Space Travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at SpacedOutRadio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at SpacedOutRadio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at UFOseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Misha Johnson is going to join us from Las Vegas. We are going to be talking about MyLabs, MK Ultra, and a lot of other black projects and her experiences and so much more at spacedoutradio.com, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, and you can listen listen to us live on The Fringe FM. Yes, if you're wondering where to find it, go to thefringe.fm. Great programming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Wiebelfetzer. Oh, I got tongue-tied on that one. Wiebelfetzer is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night, right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you could do so on Twitter, Facebook. Just type in Spaced Out Radio. We're all over the place. You can watch us live Monday through Friday on periscope.tv. And if you want to know where our archives are hidden, just go to our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We would appreciate that. Leave a comment, subscribe to it, and that would help us out as well. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Do a little shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store. Read up on the encounter online, dealing with everything paranormal, strange, and odd. You could check out my latest blog as well. Rock out to some Bumblefoot, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Tonight, it's the third Monday of the month, which means it's time for Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers to come on in, talk a little UFO action with us tonight. Tim, welcome back.
Hello.
Good to have you. Good to have you here, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on in and being a regular on this show. While we kick off hour number 2 here, before we do have some questions from the audience, and I just want to let the audience know we're going to let Tim just finish up his stories about the experimental forest that we were talking about in the last hour before we get to your questions for Tim. Tim, at that dam, your video caught some strange footage of a real blurry, almost luminescent type orb coming out of the lake, it looked like. Explain that to us.
Yeah, and there you go, friends. That's exactly, how this process seems to work. It's thousands upon thousands upon thousands in the tens and hundreds of thousands of images, and that's where you see something out of place. And that's exactly what those 6 pictures are. I was standing north of the dam looking back towards the dam. And that's when in 6 pictures, it looks like this circular, transparent, almost like a cloudy lens flare looking blurry object seems to emerge from the lake and go up into the air, and the weird thing is, luckily it's not just something that was over a single background, so it's not just like in the sky or across the mountain. It's actually in front of the water. One picture is in front of the dam, and then it's above the dam and in front of the grass or the mountain in the background. And so you have these different colors behind it. And that's, what I would consider a random anomaly. I don't know what it is. And it would just be great to get someone to send something that looks similar, or, if someone has an explanation. But in all of the video or all of the images, there you go. There's a random anomaly that showed up for that day, whatever it is.
I thought it was quite amazing because it looked like it came from underneath the water. Maybe that was just an optical illusion, but it really did look like it came from underneath the water and then up towards the dam, right, and then climbed out, almost like what a torpedo would do. Almost like it was simulating something like that, like a ghost torpedo, my friend. As stupid as that sounds.
Right. And trust me, and that's why I think it's good, for Tracy and I to be individuals who are just compiling these images and these videos daily, so we're seeing the random things that come up. So in looking at when I see a bug in an image, typically it's black. Typically the outer lines of it are defined. Usually it's streaky, or it's a circle, or it's kind of a weird design, but they all seem to kind of follow a typical pattern. Even when you have like dust on the lens, and of course we're out in the deserts all the time, so I'm constantly cleaning every camera, every lens all the time. And I can tell you right now, when a piece of dust is on the lens, it's transparent, but it has a defined shape. So it's like a circle, or it looks like a hair on there, and it's black in nature for the color, so it's not white in nature. So that anomaly that's in there is something, hey man, I don't have an explanation for you, and I don't see that. I never have once. You know, I even went as far as racking my brain to think, hey, is this a wave on the lake in the background, and it's like a lens flare? You know, like you start trying to run all these things through your mind, but
now
no explanation.
The other thing that tripped me out about this video was you claim, well, you were there investigating. There wasn't a single person up there that you could see of any type of military background, no military trucks, nothing, correct?
Right.
Okay, so what the hell was that glowing in the forest then?
I don't know, because I definitely didn't see any traffic in or out. I have an extensive amount of drone footage. Of course, I didn't put too much in the video. You know, I don't know if there's something there special. Of course, I don't think there's like some special plant, but you know, I did just put a few clips of the overhead video and some overhead JPEGs or pictures that we took. And in all of that, I did see a single white truck, but I didn't see any people. I didn't see it moving. It looked like it was in an area where it's just been sitting there. And of course, all the buildings seemed to be run down. It looked like there was a pool that was full of like murky, nasty green water that hadn't been filled in forever. And there was weird you know, that's the weirdest thing about that overhead picture of that facility, right? Is you see what looks like it looks like you're in a Las Vegas casino or in a urban street, and someone made these special channels in there, and there's like little underground channels where maybe some water had run through, or it's the weirdest thing ever, you know, because you think there'd just be some buildings on the ground and they'd have some water wells and some typical sheds, you know, and you'd have like rain gauges and rain devices. But definitely there, I also put the two, the weather station and then the antenna array or secondary weather station. I can't tell you exactly what it is, you know, because of course I don't know. But there was two white antenna things, a weather station just like you'd have at the top of Tickaboo Peak, you know, if you're looking at Area 51, that same kind of tall weather station. So it's strange, man. I have no idea like what that glowing light was, and it wasn't on initially. So like it gets dark. I'm sitting up there, you know, we're sitting up there. It's totally, you're watching out for mountain lions first off, right? We're sitting in the dark because we don't want anybody to know we're there. So I had, you know, that was one of the reasons I went up higher after investigating it during the day. So I checked it out during the day, hung out kind of by the front gate so I could see if anybody was coming in or out. Of course, I was there on a weekday because if someone works there on a regular shift, you know, I want to be able to see that occurring maybe. So once it seemed like it was getting, you know, towards the sun, maybe start going down, I headed up above, super high to get away from there to make, if someone was there, right, they think I've left. And so I came back once it got dark, with no lights on and then had a different spot. So I didn't park, necessarily by the gate for a lot of that monitoring video and images that we're seeing. It was from a different spot that gave a different perspective, and just sat in the dark and waited for something to happen. And that's when that weird green light comes on. And wasn't it so weird how it's inside like the tree lines? It seriously looks like Nightmare from Elm Street or something, dude.
Well, you know what? You know what kind of tripped me out about it, Tim, was, you know, in a different sense, when I saw my UFO in the forest, the one that was communicating with me with its lights, yes, that light was green, or pardon me, white, and this one is like a luminescent green. And I'm not saying this is a UFO, but man, that looks like something had landed there and was trying to, you know, pick something up. Otherwise somebody just turned on a really cool luminescent green switch, and if you want to check it out, to our audience, if you want to check it out, pull up another tab on your computer. If you have the chance, go to UFO Seekers on YouTube. It's the video of the experimental forest. Go to the 11-minute 32-second point. 11 minutes, 32 seconds in that 14-minute video. You can see it right there. I know a couple of you will bring it up for other people to click on the link. I highly suggest you do.
I think it was on the homepage, too, of your website. So on the sidebar.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So, but this weirds me out because, if there was people up there working on something, that's an awfully big light, Tim, and an awfully big area to be glowing green.
Right, and I had a long lens, right, and taking those pictures, and if there was individuals walking outside of that tree line or vehicles, we would be able to see it 100%. And I spent hours outside of that place, and not one of the pictures did anybody or anything ever come out of that area. So I have no idea what's going on at all. It's the weirdest thing ever.
Like, the only explanation to that would be if somebody was working underground, because if you didn't see any traffic,
right.
Like, how long did you stare at that light for?
About 7 hours.
Wow. That's a long time, man.
Well, I stared at the forest for 7 hours. I stared at the light for 5 hours. So I was there. Once it got dark, about 2 hours later is when the light came on, and then I stayed for about an additional 5 hours before I left. So,
and
actually, I have a green flashlight, like that you'd use on like a rifle, like a military green flashlight that shines just like if you were looking at infrared video, and I started flashing a green light at it, but I didn't get any reactions or anything. So,
and you didn't see any traffic whatsoever move out of there? No headlights, no nothing.
Nothing. And that's what's so weird. I mean, it's such a big property. That Los Angeles suburb area is such a high value property area. It's strange. I mean, up above it is a national monument, the San Gabriel Mountains National Monument that Barack Obama named. So it's a highly valuable area. I don't know if they just have like rain gauges and stuff like that. I have no idea why they've taken that much of the forest, and that's what the witness that reported getting chased out of the forest. I mean, he's more adamant than anybody that there's something weird going on up there. And if that place is just doing regular science, of course, right now they claim that, they have deals with colleges and they'll go up there and do experiments. It's like, really? You have all this land? I mean, it's gigantic. It's over 25 square miles of forest that they've taken. And it includes two dams and two like lakes or reservoirs. Why? And that's, if any story I probably come across, outside of a regular military base, this would be probably the one where I think there's something going on underground. And we actually did spend, like 2 months on this video. So I've been talking to the witness for over 2 months, and that's how a lot of the times these videos come about. It just to get to that location was over a 3.5 hour drive for me. So, there's way more money and time spent than we gain back, and a lot of people look at what we do and go, oh, people are in it for the money. But trust me, we put way more money and time into it than is ever paid back through any type of revenue that's made through anything by far. So that video costs, hundreds of dollars to make, plus it took 3 days just to edit, plus all the days of filming, plus we drove 3 hours to meet the witness in a separate location. So we're not actually in Glendora when we met the witness. We're actually in the desert near Barstow, California, which was a completely separate trip. So, there's a lot. I mean, it's a lifestyle. It's not something that's like done on the weekends only. It's definitely a lifestyle, Dave.
Yeah, it's definitely weird, how much time and dedication you put into it. Your passion is absolutely incredible. I want to get one more question in before we move on tonight about that green light. You said you were there for 5 hours, saw nobody running in, and that the facility could be used by colleges in different areas, and that facility maybe in conjunction with the Navy. Did that look anomalous to you, that it could have been some sort of craft, or do you think that was something man-made?
The green light looks really strange, but if I was going to go out on a limb, I would be more probable that it was man-made. So...
Weird. That's a big area to light up a bunch of glow sticks, man.
No, it is one of the weirdest looking night pictures we had ever taken of a light somewhere. So, especially on like a man-made facility, I mean, they don't have any lights outside of that tree line. You could obviously see there's like buildings and houses outside of that tree line, and there's no lights on any of them. So it's got to be one of the weirdest things I'd ever seen. And it was really weird, like taking the pictures and being up there in the dark and thinking, whoa, man, is there something down in there? But of course, yeah, I would just go on the probability that hey, man, it might be man-made. So.
Weird indeed. My friend, I want to get to a little bit of controversy here. Because, on this show we have been, I don't want to say rough on MUFON, but we've asked a lot of pointed questions, including last week when we had Chase Klutsky on the show, who really, I thought, did a real good job at talking about, some of the things that they need to change to bring credibility back to MUFON, so on and so forth. This comes on the heels of a gentleman named Chris Cogswell. Now, up until the last weekend, Cogswell was director of research for MUFON. He is a scientist by trade. However, he resigned abruptly the other day, and he posted this letter, and I'm going to read this letter to you and our audience, and I'm curious to get your opinion on it. He says, "It's with heavy heart that I must report my resignation from my position as Director of Research for the Mutual UFO Network. Yesterday afternoon, Friday the 13th, April 13th, 2018, it came to my attention that John Ventry, former state director for Pennsylvania, has had a continued role with MUFON as an active member, is listed as a paid consultant, conference coordinator, and treasurer of the PA chapter, and as part of the preparations for the upcoming symposium. I was stunned to receive an email from Mr. Ventry stating that he was the guy putting together the symposium for National MUFON, and even more stunned when his involvement was not strongly condemned and denied. Had I known that Mr. Ventry was not completely removed from MUFON, despite the upheaval that he may have caused and potential further resignations that may have followed from those who did not see the issue with what he wrote, I would have never joined. I believed, as I am sure the vast majority of the interested public believes, that he had been completely removed from MUFON, and any attempt to return to the fold of this organization would have been completely and instantly rebuffed. However, as I have now discovered through discussion with MUFON, looking at the MUFON Pennsylvania website and their list of upcoming speakers at their local conventions, and investigating the public comments from Mr. Ventry since his racist diatribe, it is clear that this is not the case. I expect this evidence will be removed from these websites, as it is clear that this process has already begun taking place. When I join MUFON, I hope to bring a scientific viewpoint and strong critique of ideas to this field. Sadly, it appears I will have to attempt that effort elsewhere. I am very grateful to those who gave me the opportunity to begin this process, and to those who believed in my plan moving forward. I am sorry that my trust was misplaced and that your trust in me was not protected correctly, Chris." So, latest article from Punk Rock and UFOs.com if you want to check them out. Good little link. But Chris Cogswell, I did talk to him the other day a little bit about it, and he was very upset that John Ventry who has been a guest previous on this show twice, much previous to him making the racial slurs and attacks that he did on his personal Facebook page. Do you agree with Chris Cogswell? Is this a major black eye to MUFON, in your opinion, as an independent researcher?
Yeah, especially the fact that John Ventry would still be there. Yeah, and that's like a lot of inside baseball. I mean, what the heck is going on? But yeah, when you had the Chase Klotsky on last week, she was talking about, they have to go through processes if they were going to terminate this individual. And I could tell you, and especially I'm a marketing public relations person, that's was always my career path before. I've been relieved of duty before for saying something wrong on the internet through just a simple forum. And so in the United States, the business laws here, it's completely 100% acceptable to terminate an individual for making statements or comments that can put the overall organization or company in a negative light. And I think if you add, times that by 2 when it's a charitable organization. So, for instance, UFO Seekers pays taxes. So there's a little tidbit that no one ever knew. UFO Seekers does pay taxes. MUFON doesn't. They're a charitable organization, right? So it's tax exempt. That's the whole point. It's a charitable organization, so it's tax exempt. They have tax exempt status. So it kind of props them up on a pedestal, which is the reason they have to submit financial documents, because in our country, if you are exempt from paying taxes, then the public has to be aware of what's going on, because you're not paying taxes to the public, who actually funds the entire American economy. And that's why UFO Seekers pays taxes, because we participate in the economy. So anybody who doesn't is held to higher scrutiny. So the fact that you have this individual who's making crazy comments, and a lot of people who have researched this, and this is, bringing it back up, it was like racist comments. It's completely unacceptable. And in the climate here in the United States, no one would bat an eye if any company or organization relieved someone of duty for doing something like that. So, I applaud the individual for standing on principles, because that's what it's all about in this, is standing on principles. But I would definitely be interested, because I know we had talked in the green room, and you were planning to have Chris on in a future episode. So I'm really interested and can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah, Chris will be on this show on June 15th is when he'll be on. So
yeah, it'll be a great episode.
It is going to be a fantastic episode too, in regards to what's going on. But that being said, I despise racism. I despise anybody who is disrespectful when it comes to color, when it comes to race, sexual orientation. It just doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't.
Right. And I come from, here in Southern California, even where I'm at in Bakersfield, Dave, I'm kind of in a minority ethnicity. It's a lot of Hispanic here in Southern California, and it's not a bad thing. That's just the true reality. And when I grew up, I played basketball. Sure. I played football. I was on a championship basketball team and a championship football team. And man, there was more than not white people hanging out in the on the basketball court. So I was like, there's not a racist bone in my body. That's the typical new American, right? That's the typical American, man.
And that's the way it should be. But this comes to a big point, and I have no proof of this or anything like that. But could John Ventry have a case in saying, "Well, that's my First Amendment. That's my private, even though it's a public profile. That's my personal view. I'm allowed to say what I want. I'm protected by the First Amendment.
No, that's a joke. The First Amendment, and I love talking about subjects like this. The First Amendment is protecting you from the government. So we're talking about public organizations. If you worked for like the DMV, the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, my speech is protected from these people doing anything to me, the police. If I'm a media, I'm protected against the police stifling my freedom of speech. I can go protest in the street. The freedom of speech does not apply to private organizations. So when you go and you work for someone, you're signing an employment contract, and that contract has stipulations, and the business has every right to regulate your speech. So you can't go out, you can't work for Walmart and then go on TV and say Amazon.com is the best. Don't shop at Walmart. Walmart will terminate you, and they'll hire someone who talks good about Walmart. That's just, and so that immediately discredits anybody saying that. There is no freedom of speech at a private business or a private organization. They're the ones who have control of the operations and their employees. And it sounds like he's more than a member. I would be assuming that they would be having problems because most people don't know that the state directors are actually in control of the state chapters of MUFON. So don't think as MUFON as a singular organization that is monitoring or regulating anybody. They're more like a franchisee who's allowed other separate individuals to use their name. And in fact, they even intake their own donations and probably have control over money themselves. And the state directors are put in a position of power. And if you're searching on the Secretary of State, and for anybody outside the United States, like California, Arizona, Texas, each one of our states has what's called the Secretary of State, and that's where business filings are filed. They're filed with the Secretary of State. So you can go to, for instance, to Colorado's Secretary of State website, and that's where you could look up the old filings for MUFON when they were located in, like, Colorado. So it wouldn't be a far cry to say that this Ventry person, if someone wants to go look up the financial followings, because like I said, it's a charitable organization, so it's mandated to provide filings about what it's doing and the revenues and the board members and the names on the licenses that exist in the individual states, right? So when like Florida MUFON or Rhode Island MUFON or Connecticut MUFON, each one of these organizations has actually done a filing with their state-run Secretary of State, and that's where people can see for themselves that the state directors are listed on these filings and are kind of in control, I think, of these individual names. So I believe if they wanted to get rid of someone dramatically, they could even do something like stopping a chapter, so it makes you wonder if you have this individual in a state who's running his local chapter and is in control of everything, especially the financials and the operations, they should go as far as just terminating that chapter and restarting a new one, under a different name in that state. But you got to have people who are willing to take the heat, and to make a stand on moral principle. And that was a lot about what I think I was, kind of preaching in the first hour, was having that moral conscience and moral responsibility to relate to people the truth, and not just partner with people because it's financially beneficial. And John Ventry definitely is very financially well off. And so that may have some impact on why this is happening, donations and stuff like that coming from him.
Well, it's definitely an ugly scene for a group that continues to have struggles. I mean, I'm sure there is behind the scenes reasons why he is still around. We don't know what those are. I highly doubt that MUFON would give anything publicly as to the reason why he may still be affiliated with that group, but as long as his name is there, it does propose a problem to, once again, credibility, does it not?
Yeah, and I think, we definitely have a lot of people that get upset when topics like this are discussed. But when you have these huge organizations or individuals who are in control in positions of power, these things are supposed to come up for debate, and that's why the whole Tom DeLonge thing was such a big debate, because it was so public, which it almost like grants everyone the right to fire back, So if this was some small hole in the wall, or just, some small doing good, paranormal group or whatever, it wouldn't be a big issue. But I think because this is the leading organization and you're expecting a certain reputation, and, for me, I always looked at certain people in, the UFO community, and I guess, back in the day, I had idols, that I looked up to. Sometimes those things can be deflated, and this definitely doesn't help.
Let's move on here. I want to get to some questions from our audience because I know I'm way behind on these right now. Catherine is asking, Tim, do you consider UFO seekers separate from the main UFO community? I would think with your quality of work, it would make you more inclusive. Let me rephrase that. I missed a couple.
So does that mean that I'm supposed to invite myself to the conferences?
No. She says, sorry, she goes, why does Tim consider UFO seekers separate from the main UFO community? I would think with his quality of work, it would make him more inclusive inside the entire UFO community, like trying to almost band it together as one, right?
Well, first off, I don't promote people's hoaxes. So when individuals like Tom DeLonge use all their connections and their celebrity power to claim that they have alien parts from an alien spacecraft from another world sitting in a building in Las Vegas that our military just gave up and couldn't figure out and gave to them, I don't promote stuff like that, especially when it's so public and you have mainstream media people sharing a story which was 100% false. I'm sure the New York Times article had to be updated again to say we misspoke about these alien metal alloys, that there was no such thing. So if that's the damage I take. So if I don't toe the line for these popular people, I'm just an evil person. And that's okay, because that's, I think, what I was talking about before, where you're going to make enemies, especially when you stand on moral principles. So, and this all began when George Knapp on Coast to Coast AM called out UFO seekers and said that we are haters and our channel is basically dumb. That's when a lot of this began. And that's why we are an outsider in the UFO community, because just like the listener said, we're going to get bashed, because I guess that if you're a UFO organization, the number one thing I'm supposed to do is go meet the people who have older organizations, and I'm supposed to promote them before I'm even allowed to make a video. And I'm supposed to ask their permission about what I can video. And then I need to ask their permission about what stories I can cover. And that's what we don't do. My opinion, and the opinion expressed by UFO seekers, isn't molded by anyone. There's no agenda behind it. There isn't individuals paying me to say something or paying me to write something that I know isn't true. And if that makes us evil, that's okay. But when people tee themselves up and use celebrity power to make something such a radical mistruth to the public, people know now to trust UFO seekers. So if your listener wants to keep listening to those people who keep telling her hoaxes, that's fully acceptable. And there's always, great stories out there, or, nonfiction to listen to. And that's Tom DeLonge's specialty. He expresses it all the time. He's into nonfiction, imagination, writing storybooks. And especially the co-author who writes his books, who no one talks about, the shadow author. Of course, no one talks about that. You know, like they gave the UFO Researcher of the Year award to this guy, and they didn't even invite the shadow author who co-wrote the book. You know, so that's interesting. But it's not about being, you know, we're the black sheep. I just want like your listener to know we're the ones everyone hates. So it's, you know, I've reached out to people. I've even reached out to Cliff Barackman from like the Bigfoot community. I've reached out to Coast AM, and anything they'd ever need. I would literally drive somewhere and take a picture for Coast AM. No, they don't respond. You know, George Knapp doesn't respond. These people don't respond because that's when you start to learn that there's a cabal, and there's a cabal in the UFO community. And so that's why UFO Seekers, we're separate from that. We're not in their political movement or their cabal, because we're not about pushing agendas to help people make money and sell books. UFO Seekers is about finding the truth about people's experiences. And they don't have to have a military title, or they don't have to be a celebrity for us to believe their story. So UFO Seekers is like a place for the forgotten man, the forgotten witnesses, you know, the people who get made fun of. You know, I mean, the funny thing is everybody touts Tucker Carlson sharing To the Stars Academy. Well, did you hear in that interview that he made fun of everyone who goes and looks for UFOs? And he said that anyone out at 3 a.m. in the morning looking for UFOs is a freak. Oh, but yet we love that he shared the To the Stars story. You know, so that's the funny part about this quote unquote UFO community. And I don't even know what it is, this quote unquote UFO community. I know there's a disclosure political movement. For instance, like Stephen Bassett and his Paradigm Research Group picked Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to be their person to bring disclosure. You know, and so it became a movement to help get someone elected into political power. Well, the funny part about that is politicians execute war. And so, you know, that's a lot of times why people say religion and government don't mix, because government kills people. And so I think when the UFO community starts partnering with governments and, you know, secret people who basically are operating all these secret programs and projects that we ran about, there's a lot to be questioned. And I think there's a lot that's going to come out in this new era of sourcing information. And the UFO community, these elites and celebrities at the top are headed for a WWF moment. And I promise you that when there's a story or something happens in this quote unquote UFO community, people can continue to look to UFO Seekers to bring a rational and truthful voice. And that's all it's been since the beginning. But if they want to continue to listen to people who claim to be scientific, oh, we have the answers. Oh, but the Peruvian mummies, oh, it's human DNA. Oh, there's no alien metal alloys. Oh, 2 of these 3 videos, well, none of these videos actually came from the Department of Defense, and FOIA requests haven't been able to verify anything Elizondo said. In fact, FOIA requests for his resignation letter haven't come back. The Navy had no interactions with this so-called program, which they didn't even acknowledge happened, and they had no records for it via the Black Vault and FOIA requests. So while everyone continues to propagate speculation as truth, our organization will continue to rely on facts before promoting speculations that are helping people raise investments in IPO offerings, such as To the Stars Academy did by releasing that story just 2 weeks before the IPO ended, when their investments were doing bad in their company. And so that's where the desperation came in. And all these individuals like George Knapp tried as hard as they could to rescue that after DeLong tanked on the Joe Rogan interview and claimed that the military recovered an alien body in the Cold War and shared a CGI YouTube video as an alien video. And so that was the issue.
Let's move on to another question here. Trip is asking, Tim, do you think satellites are moved before meteor showers? 2 years ago after the Perseid shower, I swear I seen 2 satellites moving north to south, one following inches apart from the other in a line.
Dang. I wouldn't doubt it, right? And that was people can look up. It was, probably like a decade ago. There was an amateur, what would you even call it? Like a portable ham operator, so there's like a fad out there where people have, these huge radio antennas that they carry around, and they have handheld radio equipment, and they actually listen to satellites moving overhead. Well, there was this one listener following a Russian satellite, which was supposed to be just some like normal satellite. Turns out it was a Russian spy satellite. Well, turns out this listener, amateur, caught the satellite moving up and down in orbit, right? So we all can understand that when we send a satellite up, the satellite goes to a specific altitude or, height above the atmosphere because it's going at a certain speed and it's doing certain functions. But because of that speed, it has to be at the perfect height. So they don't change heights unless they have a way to change things like speed, right? Or have the jets to move up and down. Well, this one started moving up and down. So he is totally right on the money. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that there's way more going on than we even know. Like satellites are probably so retrograde. I mean, Sputnik was kind of like the first satellite, right? That they're probably having full-on wars up there.
Be definitely interesting considering what's happening down here right now. Let's get to Greg's question. What's the best sighting, Tim, you've ever had?
The best sighting I ever had is that epic 5 die. So I was driving at night, and up in the sky, 30 to 60,000 feet probably, at like a 45-degree angle up in the night sky, I saw 5 lights appear in the shape on like a die, and then the outer 4 started spinning, but always keeping like the same distance from each other. So the outer 4 like started spinning around the center, and they'd stop in the 5 die formation every time. And then the outside lights would start going into the center lights until finally, and the sighting lasted about 25 seconds, to where finally all the lights went to the center and the one big light just shot off into the sky.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible, dude. I would love to see
that.
that.
It was pretty wicked. And I was like a young kid, so that was like the second I was even interested in things unexplainable. That was literally like the moment. So
yeah, that would turn me around right there. I mean, we get to see so much, and all you have to do is spend a couple of hours looking in the sky. There is a good chance you'll see something anomalous. I mean, that's how easy it is, but none of us really want to take that time anymore. We always have to be doing something instead of just taking time to stare up at the stars. And it's that easy, isn't it, Tim?
Right. And it's about getting that humanness back, and getting away from like all the devices and all the drama and the rat race of life, getting back to the humanness, or being a human, and getting out in nature. I just try to think about all the time. Imagine how fun it would have been. Of course life's better now because it's easier, I guess, but imagine like living a couple thousand years ago and what people thought when they looked at the sky, and how serious they took it, and the positions of the stars and the maps they made. People just aren't like that. It's hard to find people like that nowadays, but, I meet telescope enthusiasts, amateur astronomers, and that's where you kind of meet those people where they have those roots, and that's why, the paranormal community and this UFO community, it's nice to meet people who have that same mentality. There was so much more spiritualness long ago, and that is gone now. It's like so cold in life that there's no more mystery, and so that's why I love making films for people, is to bring, some of that mystery. I loved watching the X-Files, who didn't, and giving people that same type of like feeling, and trying to go through what a Mulder would go through, how he would feel. And he believed people's stories. So that's what I'm trying to do. I try to believe people's stories try to take it like as serious as a molder would. Of course, we don't have scientific analysis equipment like they would have, but people just want to experience locations, and they want to hear people's experiences, and that's what it's all about. It's by far the best evidence is the individual witness experiences, and I think what is so radical is the amount of people who have had experiences. But like I was saying before, it seems like everyone has had like the one, so it's that random.
Let's move over to Joe's question, and Joe is asking, how important has using a drone been to your investigations?
It's best when at like a lake, because it's nice to go over a lake. But the problem with the drones is you just don't have the quality of imagery as you would have in a larger lens camera, or let alone even a zoom ability. And so, of course, when you're observing things live too, I mean, it's got to be like perfect conditions for you to see the screen perfectly and what's going on. Like the last time we went out is 50 to 60 mile an hour winds in the desert, so the drone's not even an option. And even if you did get the drone up, it's so windy, the latency problems with the video, and it's sketchy, and the GPS starts going out. So, but it's not, none of these things or anything. I just like woke up one day and, hey, I bought a drone, and I started editing videos. I've been editing for a long time. I worked in Flash, Macromedia Flash, before it was even purchased by Adobe. So I used to work in Macromedia Flash when it first came out. And that's where I started getting into like editing and animations and stuff. And I already had like a million flying feet on a drone, and was already doing commercials for people. So I'd film B-roll for car commercials, like in the mountains. I'd chase cars with the drone, or I'd sit in the back of a vehicle with like a Ronin stabilizer and shoot cars. So there's a lot to the experience and like the work experience that goes into it, So keeping up all the equipment, let alone, is difficult in itself. I mean, the drone has to be updated with new firmware. The batteries all have smart, intelligent software, so each battery has firmware that needs to be updated, including the controller has its own firmware, including the mobile device you're using or the iPad. So constantly I'm updating the firmwares on the equipment, cleaning like the lenses, and the same thing with the cameras. So we have about 14 cameras, so it's cleaning all that stuff. So when you combine it all together, keeping rechargeable AA's and AAA's, managing like the computer equipment, and then just having the time to do like the social media stuff and the editing, it's like a full-time job.
Mm-hmm. We only got a couple minutes here before we have to go to our final break of the night. Is there any technology, Tim, that you think that you could use that would benefit your research, or is it just as simple as getting the camera equipment that you are currently using and just spending as much time out in the sky, because that's where the research is?
Right.
And let me follow up. Let me follow up on that for a quick second, because so much in the paranormal community, especially, people are thinking they got to go buy thousands of dollars of gear, Tim. Thousands of dollars, breaking the bank on gear.
Right. Well, lucky for me, my second job was in the auto racing business. So and I worked in there for almost a decade. And that's where I really got to experience that keep up with the Joneses effect. There's always, some new suspension shock, or some new piston ring, or some new muffler or roll cage or radio, new fiberglass, or we're moving to carbon fiber. We're not using glass windshields. We're using Lexan now. But there was always this guy, because I did road racing, so I do like 24 hours at Le Mans, Road Atlanta, stuff like that, like Sebring, and there was this one guy that I knew really well, and he had not the greatest Porsche, and this was in the Porsche Owners Club, This guy had a Porsche 911. It wasn't the greatest. The guy probably spent like, $60,000, $80,000 on the race car. Other guys are spending $500,000, $1 million. And this guy always finished third every single time, no matter what. You couldn't buy your way onto the podium past this gentleman. And a lot of life is like that. We get into these, into work or into a hobby or into a sport. I used to do a lot of golf. I was like a 7 handicap for a while. I'd taken extensive golf lessons, and my teacher just would rail me all the time about not trying to buy a fix for my swing, because all the time I'm searching for like a new device to help me chip or putt or hit a straighter drive, get a new club. The UFO Seekers started with 2 cameras, and it literally always like comes back to that basic viewpoint of it. The more things you get, the more equipment you have to buy, the more complicated it becomes. And that's what's happened to a lot of these bigger people, and these people who claim to own this community. They're in that keep up with the Joneses thing. What separated UFO Seekers and made us different, we actually go out. So while everyone else, kind of does a lot of research on the internet, there's no problem with that. The problem that we viewed was that when we searched for content, there wasn't any from the spots. And so that's where we try to fill that gap, and that's why we get railed all the time, oh, we're elites. But like, dude, we just go out and film some videos. There's nothing disheartening about it. So it's always having that simple view of just being out there, catching what you can. Lucky for me, I met the guy who made the video Crusty Demons of Dirt. I don't know if anybody saw that, but like I grew up in the area where like Jeremy McGrath grew up. I used to live like right down the street from his house. So there's like a lot of motocross stuff. Well, I met the guy who filmed that, and we were doing photography together, and he taught me that it didn't matter what camera I had, how crappy the video looked or how crappy the photo was. The difference between me and someone else, I had the photo. Right. So if you go somewhere and you get a photo or a video, you're the only one with it, and the content matters.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break here on Space Out Radio. Our final break of the night. Coming back, more UFOs with Tim Doyle. We're going to get into his experience bringing his UFO car onto a Naval Air Station base and the Hobo Campground. Hey, Cousin Gary, want to say hello to Jessica, who's listening with you tonight. Cousin Gary's in Edmonton. He's got a great mustache, so we always like to give a shout-out to his mustache as well. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
We're lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
There's stories, then there's the truth. Do any of us really trust the news anymore? This is Jamie Sexton, owner of Rebel Planet News. The third Thursday of every month, I appear on spacedoutradio.com to bring you the truth you deserve, without mainstream media lies or alternative media fear-mongering. We'll get to the heart of the story and deliver the truth you are seeking. So come join us here for the Rebel Planet at spacedoutradio.com.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Space Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we got a little controversial. We are going to have Misha Johnson on the show. She's going to tell us about her MyLab and MK Ultra experiences. It's pretty detailed, pretty graphic. Tune on in at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time on our website. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com. And we are also on Spreaker. And you can listen to us at The Fringe FM, our home away from home. Gotta love The Fringe. Go to thefringe.fm to check out some great programming all day, all night. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Wiebelfetzer. Wiebelfetzer is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, we are all over the place. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just type in Spaced Out Radio. We are right there. And you can follow us on periscope.tv every Monday through Friday night. And if you want to know where our archives are hidden, just go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We would highly appreciate that. Now, if you head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read the Encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Speaking of UFO Seekers, Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers is here tonight, talking everything UFOs as Tim comes in the third Monday of every month, just hanging out with us, talking a little UFOs, talking disclosure, talking whatever comes up. Tim, welcome back.
Thank you, buddy.
Not a problem. Just want to say to Les at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, no, I know you missed the first couple of hours due to other projects you were on, but no, I can't restart the show. I just can't. Our broadcast affiliates wouldn't appreciate that. But you can find it on our YouTube channel about 10-15 minutes after the show. It'll be there. Thanks, though, Les. You're looking good tonight. Looking very good. Tim, I got to ask you right off the bat, man. How do you get your UFO Seekers video, or your car, pardon me, your UFO Seekers car, which is all deckled out? How do you get that onto a military base?
Probably not through a good way, but I have no idea. In fact, I thought that more than anything probably would have been the biggest story or thing that had happened for UFO Seekers. In fact, Tracy and I both, full-heartedly believe that was our most epic moment, was getting invited to go on a naval facility, and honestly, in the communication was to look and see if there was any UFOs, like literally to look and see if there was anything weird or secret projects or anything like that going on at the specific facility, which we had showcased in a video before because we had reports of like strange noises and possible like military UFO technology. And so we did drive the car, the UFO Seekers car, onto the facility and parked on base. I don't know if they put something in my car to track my location. We did go onto the base and got to walk through hangars, got to meet people in all aspects of operations on the facility, from a pilot about to go on deployment to a pilot who just got back from deployment. Got to meet, some of the heads there. I got to meet the boss of the public relations lady. I was out, Tracy and I got to go onto the runway and shoot photography of active Navy jets practicing touch and goes. So they actually have like a runway with a little shack, and they call it the LSO shack. And just like on an aircraft carrier, when a pilot's coming in for a landing, there's someone in a shack on the aircraft carrier who's helping the pilot land. And they have monitoring equipment, and of course the guy in the shack is communicating to the pilot what to do to make the proper landing. Hey, you're too high, you're coming in too low, you need to speed up or turn at a different angle. And this runway also has a cord if they wanted actually to practice them grabbing the cord. And we got to stand like 50 feet away from this happening and take full-on close-ups of the jets, which was awesome, absolutely awesome. I got to meet the public relations head there. He drove up in a white Ford Explorer out on the runway and drives up to me and rolls his window down and goes, "Hey, I saw your video." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, dude, I'm going to the brig, bro." Because, I mean, we had some night video of like the F-35 area, of like technicians working on F-35Cs, which are still classified for photography. So while we were there, we did observe the Navy F-35Cs, which are different than the 35A or the 35B, which have extensive photography available on the internet, like the Marine and the Air Force version. But the Navy version, I guess, is more highly secretive still. But that was cool. And then meeting that head of the public relations department, I guess you'd say, was pretty scary. So we were halfway debating if we should even go because we didn't know if we were going to get in trouble and not be able to leave. And from some people that have communicated to me, they think it was some kind of like military or government integrity check where they'd actually invite us on. We did catch someone taking pictures of us, like close up, which was kind of strange. So that's what I think they were there for, because, of course, for us to get on base, we had to fill out applications. I mean, we've done this for the Air Force before because we've taken a tour of Edwards Air Force Base and passed, but so they have that all that information, like my social security number and all that now. Of course, they probably put something on my car, but we did hand out like UFO stuff, so we did wear like our UFO Seekers clothing, so we didn't like try to hide it. While I was there, I did ask people UFO-related questions. In fact, I did ask higher up about the 2004 Nimitz incident. So why it's referred to as the Nimitz incident, it should be called the Lemoore incident because that's where David Fravor actually flew from that day, right? So this base we went to is actually the largest West Coast Pacific Fleet division for the Navy. So at this facility we went to are literally in the hundreds when it comes to jets. And there's international groups there. Also, there was a Marine group of jets there. And of course, these are the people that would operate on the Navy carriers. So the facility itself has hangars, large hangars and buildings that run down the center of the operational base. So of course, we didn't go to like the administrative part of the base. We went to the active operations part of the base. And they have hangars running down the middle, and then there's two separate runways, one on each side. One's for takeoffs, one's for landings. The runway we went to was the runway used for landings. And each section is kind of divided into carrier groups. So at Lemoore Naval Air Station in Lemoore, California, there's actually 4 carrier groups stationed there. And I mean, it's freaking awesome. These are the guys that are serving the whole Pacific Fleet, like all the way to Africa, so there's people there doing active operations probably. There's people there just doing training, like David Fravor from that 2004 Nimitz incident. He was out doing training because the carrier was back in port. And then also while we were there, we got to learn about the major airplane that's there is the FA-18 Super Hornet. And one of the carrier groups has traded in the Super Hornets, and they're getting upgraded to the F-35Cs, and they're actually going to be the first. They're the first group transitioning from the Super Hornet into that F-35C. So quite a deal. It was freaking awesome.
I have to say, that takes a lot of guts to bring that UFO Seekers car onto the base. You know, because, I mean, you're automatically putting attention on yourself in regards to that. Why didn't you bring another vehicle rather than the UFO Seekers car?
Well, because we're a media agency, and that's what we're trying to do. We cover the news, and the primary news topic we cover is UFO sightings and the alien question. And so that kind of intertwines with aviation because people are seeing things in the sky. And so, of course, it weaves its way into both. So I think it's about having credibility in our videos. And of course, you could consider our videos like a high quality, full production episode. A lot of our fans and followers say it's just like watching TV. I've had prominent UFO people tell me it's like watching the History Channel, you know. You're just turning on another TV show. And that's what we like about YouTube, is having the ability to bring people that high quality of content for free. You know, they can watch our videos for free. It doesn't cost anything. But I think it's about having that journalistic aspect and respectability. So, I mean, last week I listened to an aviation journalist who decided he wanted to cover a UFO story, which became viral. And they don't typically cover that phenomenon, but the aviation person did an interview and said that they just cover it because it gets good traffic. And that's not what we're looking to do. We take the topic serious. I mean, I get ridiculed from half the people I meet, ridicule from my own family to even, you know, pose the question and take it that serious. I mean, you even have people in the UFO community who say UFOs is a stigma name, so you shouldn't even use it, you know, but I have the guts to stick up for the UFO name and these people's stories, and that's what it's all about, you know, and that's, you know, we hear so much about, wow, it's so great to have this story out there because more people think it's, you know, they think about it, but that's not how you like convert people through words and talking. You convert people like through actions and doing things and showing them why. And so that's what UFO Seekers is doing, is trying to make, you know, this question about the UFO phenomenon or this alien question more mainstream through respectability. And it's not just because, well, you know, because we do scientific A or B. It's that from start to finish, it's completely journalistic, you know. So it's hopefully, you know, the people we met at that facility go home and look at the UFO phenomenon different. And we put together a nice video for them too, because I think a lot of the times in these type of talking points, if someone wants to go as far as, you know, talking, let's say it's conspiracy theories, you know, sometimes the humanity of people gets left behind. So I think I'm into the UFO question because I stand against the federal government owning this question, and I truly think they're hiding something, and I want to find out what it is. So I don't want to be a partner with them. So I think it's about, you know, still respecting the men and women who are giving their lives for you know, our defense or in the military, and having the utmost respect for these people and their talents and their crafts and their dedication and their sacrifice. But at the same time, you know, challenging leadership. I think that's what a lot of us, you know, believe, but it doesn't get said a lot, is that, you know, in these topics that a lot of us discuss, we're concerned with the leadership of these things, you know. Hey, the president did a directive and this was his doing. Oh, the head of the Department of Defense, it was his directive and he did something, you know. So I think it was nice for us to like give a video back to those people who kind of, you know, they serve the country and give me the ability to have freedom of speech. I wouldn't if it wasn't for them. But at the same time, would never partner with anyone involved in like disinformation campaigns or or heads of anything related to like the Defense Department or the Defense Intelligence Agency or the CIA. I mean, come on, that is completely opposite of I think the goal. But in saying that, you can't lose the humanity behind the people who are actually operating a lot of these things and giving their lives. So.
What kind of questions of UFOs did you ask when you were on base? Did you feel comfortable asking those questions, or was it something that you were very cautious about how you approached it?
No, because I mean, of course, wearing like a UFO thing, 99% of the military people look at you with a weird eye, because I have a really good friend I went to high school with who's flown Area 51. And he thinks I'm a Looney Tune, man. We're great friends, and we have great discussions about things like government or politics or religion, life in general. So I think there is kind of a false misrepresentation to how many people in the military community would actually believe some of these stories. So I did take it upon myself to ask people about the 2004 Nimitz incident specifically. And of course, I never mentioned that to the PR person that we communicated with, who invited us on base. So I never discussed, of course, I wouldn't tell them, oh, well, I'm going to ask people this or that. But yeah, that was my intention, was to find out about this Nimitz thing. I wanted to know who on base knows about David Fravor and this incident with this UFO out in the Pacific Ocean. But unfortunately, the higher up I talked to and everyone else I asked about it, I couldn't find one person on the base who had heard of the story. Because I thought it would be like an urban legend, man. I thought you'd walk into the cafeteria, and I actually went to the cafeteria. I thought in the cafeteria, you'd have this, the famous UFO incident, or, I went into the locker rooms because I had to use the restroom. You think you'd kind of like meet people, and the story would be an urban myth that runs rampant at that place. But unfortunately, I didn't find one person who knew about that incident.
Do you think they were saying that they didn't know, or maybe it's just kind of military policy not to talk about it? Let's be honest.
No, and it's a good question. So, but let's be honest too. Who else is there asking? So people can come back at me and say whatever they want. The difference is I'm the one they're asking the question.
Was it absolutely about not getting a response at all, or were there anybody saying, I heard about that, but it's just a load of garbage as far as I'm concerned?
No one that I spoke to had ever heard of Mr. Fravor or the incident at all. So there was no acknowledgement that it existed. And the higher up I talked to actually said they watch UFO stuff if it comes on TV, right? So it's not like, don't think, oh, I asked these questions and these people, oh, UFOs don't even exist. Like, people entertain the topic. I mean, anyone who's in aviation or is a pilot, this like goes hand in hand with that. There's like a heritage to it, people sightings and things people have seen. I mean, some of the most famous ones are from pilots because they're the most educated about seeing stuff in the sky. So, I mean, I definitely saw that it wasn't a non-debatable question, and I do have confirmation that there was people on base who have like watched UFO stuff. The head of the public relation watched my UFO video. The PR person that gave us the invitation watched our UFO video. So there you go.
You said that you were photographed while you were on base, both you and Tracy. Explain that to us in a little bit further detail, if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, the base had their own photographer with us when we went on, who was also taking pictures because the base uses stuff for social media, etc. And this person undoubtedly was taking pictures of us. So, I mean, I remember it perfectly in my head. I was taking a picture of one of the F-18 flight lines, with the hangar behind me, looking out over the concrete of a flight line, taking a picture, and I've got my eye in the viewfinder. And I just stop taking a picture because you get that feeling like someone's watching you, right? Hey, there you go, paranormal stuff, right? I get this feeling someone's watching me. And all of a sudden I look up and the guy's full on with he has like a medium sized lens. So it's not like a short lens. He's probably got like a good 200 millimeter lens, just full on like zoomed in, taking a picture of my upper torso. I'm like, dude, I didn't say anything, but oh yeah, but that's okay. I mean, that's what comes with the game. I fully understand. They monitor my phone calls, my email communications. They know where I'm going. I totally aware that's totally acceptable. I mean, if they were seeing my cell phone ping on GPS locations at a military base here, a military base there, a military base here, a military base there, wouldn't you watch my stuff too? I mean, now that we know that like Facebook gives the government full reign to track these things. I mean, we just learned that the Trump lawyer who got, they just admitted they had the Trump lawyer under electronic surveillance for like 6 months, so they were listening to everything. I mean, anyone in the world, like, just understand, if you have a device, they are listening to you. They're using the microphones. They're doing whatever, so it doesn't trip me out to like physically go there and have them take my picture, because it's like I already have 100 on Facebook. Just have them. I know they already have them.
Yeah, but still, there's something unsettling about that, Tim. It's like going into shark-infested waters and they're circling you because they're hungry, and you're not sure if they're going to bite or not.
Yeah, but that's what... I mean, if anybody asks me, like, how serious we take it, I mean, I would give my life to know the truth about the UFO phenomenon, like, literally. I mean, I was the kid who grew up believing everything. And so that's why I wanted to go out and, like, explore and see what's out there. That was like our tagline at the beginning, let's see what's out there. And so that's kind of what comes with the territory. I mean, you hear all these stories about Men in Black and UFO investigators disappearing, and if that's what happens, then people can confirm it. So at least like with us being, like UFO investigators, a lot of this stuff is well documented now, like through the YouTube, through the social medias. So if anything happens to us, I think it can be more in the limelight for people to know definitively, they disappeared, and we're sure this is why. So, and that's kind of what I fully expect to happen. I mean, I don't expect to like go on a journey that leads to some deep, dark secret and expect not something to happen. So.
Were they allowing you full access on a media card on the base, or were they kind of watching you a little bit differently than maybe other people, considering your affiliation?
Well, it's not like free reign, so it's not like they would want you just to like stand there and like rotate and take a 360-degree panorama picture. So I'd say like the majority of the time it was like, okay, you could photograph this, or they'd point over here, hey, you could photograph this, or they'd have something staged, or like a pilot staged. Okay, we're going to meet this pilot and we get to have a conversation. I have pictures like with the pilot. It's an active carrier group facility, so I wouldn't expect to have full access to just take pictures of anything. It was communicated to us that the intentions were more of us getting to see it and share it with our viewers, to show people that this specific facility just had like regular military activities going on it. So the most important thing for us, and even going into it, was getting that access. And like we had actually communicated with an actual military person, we're looking for UFO stuff that's alien. Okay, we're not looking. You have all these people out in the UFO elites, the celebrities who such dodge around the alien thing. Okay, I'm not Alejandro Rojas from Open Minds when I say UFO. I mean, he just said this last week on the radio. When he says UFO, he's not talking about aliens. He specifically said he's talking about stuff that could be manned. Okay, we're not looking for man stuff. We're looking for alien stuff. That's the whole point of this. Don't even say UFO anymore unless you're talking about an alien possibility. I mean, that's the whole reason we do this. So it's like this trendy thing now. I call it the Tom DeLonge syndrome, where people now think UFO means manned. That's not what it means. Just to save Tom DeLonge's butt, UFO doesn't mean manned now. UFO has always meant that there's a possibility it could be alien. So that's what we were doing. We were at the facility looking for possible alien technology or some secret project that's developed from some type of alien technology, period. And so that was like the greatest part of it. And while we were there, no, I didn't see anything like that. I didn't see anything where, it looked like there could be an underground facility. Of course, while we were there, we couldn't show the F-35 division because of national security. But getting to visually see these things, I didn't see a UFO. It doesn't mean that they couldn't hide something. Of course not, But while I was there, no, I didn't see any type of hangar. Pretty much went through every single hangar. I didn't see anywhere where they were hiding something like that. It wasn't like Flight of the Navigator, right? I mean, that's what I'm like looking for, Dave, right? Like Flight of the Navigator, bro. And you go into one of these hangars and there's something floating halfway up in the air with a blanket over it and no landing legs, right? But no, there wasn't anything like that. But then that was the cool part, and that's where we feel like we full on are representing the UFO community in the right way. It's not, so hyper radical that it would turn people off. It's more, we really try to like moderate, moderate to where we're not drawing definitive conclusions that are like hyper radical, So I think it was a great reputation or a boost for the reputation of the UFO community going. And hopefully we converted some military people to being UFO fans,
I'm really getting fed up with this as well, to be honest with you, is how UFOs now are not alien craft and we're not supposed to. I mean, this isn't something to get politically correct about. You know what I'm saying? Right. UFOs have been UFOs for 70 years, and all of a sudden, people start dropping the UAP or whatever. Remember, Hillary came out on Jimmy Kimmel and said, well, we don't use UFOs anymore. We call them unidentified aerial phenomena. Really? Do we have to separate? There is no difference between a UAP and a UFO. None whatsoever. That's just being a jerk acronym for nothing. But in reality, I'm like you, Tim. I'm very disturbed by the fact that they are now trying to pass off UAPs or UFOs as human craft, and we're not even supposed to talk alien craft anymore. I guess my question is, what do you think the fear is in bringing out the fact that it could possibly be alien craft?
The fear is in the ridicule, bro. That's their problem. I mean, they talk about, if you're a believer in a phenomenon, but you can't even use the word UFO because someone laughs at you, oh man, you shouldn't even be in this field. Thank God for shows like Finding Bigfoot. At least, those guys, they believe in what they're doing. How else can you find the truth if you're too scared to even say the name of the thing, right? It's like Harry Potter, and no one will say the word Voldemort until Harry Potter, some kid will say it. So it's about, standing up for that. That's what we're all looking for. If I get people coming to me and they're telling me they got an alien implant, I'm not going to put them on my YouTube channel, which I only think UFOs could be manned. It makes no sense. Right? So, I really want to be like a staunch supporter for staying the course and not getting diverted. There's this big push out there right now, And it's like a branding push. And the branding is to destroy the UFO name. And that's what's going on out there. You know, they're trying to bring it down. But I think it's those of us who stand up for it as being an alien question. That's what UFO means. It really helps. It really helps those people who've had the experiences. So, I mean, how deflating for someone who reports a sighting to an individual who says, well, you know, I don't even believe all UFOs. I'm not saying UFOs mean alien, and that's not the intention at all. It's like, well, then why do you even have a debate about it? So it's real confusing, man. I mean, doesn't it feel like some kind of disinformation campaign?
Well, I mean, you brought up a good point right there in the word confusing, where to me, maybe they are trying to confuse the people out there. Maybe not the old-timers who know what's going on, but especially the newer crowd who is just learning about this, because the more confusion we could give them, the less they may think that UFOs are of alien descent.
Right. And that was, you know, I mean, a lot of people, I think, were bothered by that, was that, hey, we were going to have this disclosure movement, and then, you know, there was these leaders of it currently, and the leaders were like scared to even say UFO. So that was like a red flag in itself. So, you know, I just hope there's lots of people who have the courage to still say, and even like me, never once in a video or anywhere have I said, yes, aliens are real. Never once. And that's not my intention, is to ever have a view, is to stay nonpartisan. But at the same time, it's exactly what I'm looking for. I want to get abducted. I want to see an alien. I want to have the implant experience, man. I know I regret it, but it would verify for me, you know, a lot of the stories I've been told. So, I mean, I still meet people every day that have these stories of these encounters with beings they can't explain, you know, and whether or not it's some type of angel or God or creator that phases or shifts in. And that's, you know, and that's becoming more of a probability in my outlook on it. You know, it's not to just say the word alien and it means that it's, you know, this color skin being that looks this way. It seems that the most strange and dramatic sightings, if we're looking at the craft or the object that a being or this thing or this UFO is using, it's not like a saucer disc or an aircraft that's flying through the solar system. So it's not, I don't see if an alien's visiting here, I don't see it as being a flying saucer that comes from another planet and flies literally through the solar system, dodging asteroids, dodging this, you know, put in the coordinates. I see it as being something that can just phase in. So you're just standing there, and then up in the sky, this thing appears, or this light appears, or this, you know, this looking vehicle thing appears, and it makes radical movements, and it's gone, you know. And that's, maybe it's like angels, maybe it's our creators, and there's like another dimension or somewhere where these energy beings or these beings that can materialize or have mass when they get here can just use, you know, some type of like radio frequency or some radio spectrum or something. And I've even had an Air Force pilot tell me about that, a test pilot. And like, he went so far, it was tripping me out, because we were just having like normal conversation about normal aircraft. And then he poses this question. And I don't know if he was like feeding me information about a project they had done, but we were talking about like radio frequencies, and talking about where, you know, there was like this old show, and this old television show back in the day. And the premise of it is there was like UFOs everywhere, and they were in the air, but you couldn't see them. but you could see it if you slapped your head, and your head like vibrated at a frequency. And because your head vibrated at a frequency, it made your eyes see a certain frequency, and all of a sudden you could see the UFO for as long as your head was ringing. It was really weird. And so that's what we're talking about, is like somehow, because people should remember that radio frequencies are a form of light. So just like you have, light that comes from the sun and it comes in a light wave, a radio frequency is the same thing. It is light, and it comes in a wave. And it's literally like it seems like the key to everything. Like when you see Star Trek, the radio frequencies are in charge of the cloaking devices. It's like shifting that radio frequency around the craft, and all of a sudden it visually disappears because radio frequencies are actually light waves. It's just not commonly thought of that way. I mean, even cell phones are radio communicators, right? So we all used to have CB radios and ham radios that operated on hundreds of megahertz or, 25 megahertz. And then we went to cell phones. Well, cell phones are just an advanced radio wave device. It has to have a cell phone tower that's not far away. It's a radio frequency receiver. Your cell phone operates at a radio frequency between 1.8 gigahertz and like 2.5 gigahertz, sending out the radio signal. So imagine that. So back in the day, we had CBs with antennas on the roof of our cars. Now we put the transmitter right up to our ear, and it's shooting out a huge band of radio frequencies, right? No wonder it could probably mess with people's brains. So that's what the conversation I had with the Air Force individual was about. He was trying to get me to think or imagine that a ship or a craft could have some type of like weird field around it that's generated by some type of radio frequency generator, and then somehow phasing out and then phasing in somewhere else. And that was about as far as I could get with him. And it was really weird because it made me postulate that question about, wow, do these things that are visiting and these people are having encounters with these beings or these crafts, is that what we're seeing? It's just like our creators, they're existing somewhere else, and they just phase in and phase out.
We only got a few minutes here before we have to go to the thought of the day, and I wanted to get into the hobo campground because this is eerie. This is very eerie, and I was watching the video of this old rundown shack that's all boarded up, and Tim has his camera over by this window where these aliens apparently came into the cabin or around the cabin or whatever it was. And I'll let Tim tell the story on that. But in his video at about 11:29 of this hobo campground, I swear I saw something move in there, Tim. Did you and Tracy check that out?
Yeah, and it looks really strange. Like I said, I haven't been able to get on a better screen to look at it because I just have this little laptop thing. I don't doubt it, man. That building was strange. And that sighting was, so interesting, and that's why we covered it. Someone was camping there, and that river is part of the mountains that contain Yosemite Park and Kings Canyon, and that's like the third river, is the Kern River. And there's people camping there. It's great nature. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, kind of. And the campground is right on the river. And the road you would use to get to the campground is on the other side of the camping spots, right? So you have like the river, you have camping spots, then you have this small road, and on the other side of the road is this old U.S. Forest Service building. And of course, I'm sure the building is from the mining era. So I'm sure there's probably paranormal activity from people who lived there since like the 1800s. But of course, now it's all boarded up and it isn't used. And I don't know much about why the Forest Service closed it down, but a husband and wife were camping at the campground, and at night, from a mountain ridge, they saw a UFO come over the ridge and come down into the kind of the little valley where they're camped at. It's kind of a little enclosed valley that you can't see out of. And as the UFO came down, it just disappeared, like went transparent, which is very common with a lot of UFO sightings. But what separated this one from other ones was that building about 5 minutes later lights up with lights inside. And that was incredible. I mean, I can't imagine what those people were thinking. Because if we're trying to like have a debate to rationalize it, and we're like, well, it could be like some military guys. I mean, come on. Now we're talking about like military cloaking device. How did they get in the building? Like, why aren't you hearing anything? So I definitely thought it was one of the most interesting stories we heard. And the greatest part about, us getting out there, visiting the location, not being scared to show people what we're doing, which is why we have the UFO Seekers vehicle. And we had a couple people relay their stories to us from that area, of having similar activity. And this even goes back to the first hour when we were talking about Lake Isabella and people seeing the orbs or lights coming out of the lake that's near there. And that's in that same general area. And the most interesting part, too, is that's part military airspace shared with places like Edwards Air Force Base. So you do have active military in the area. And you wonder sometimes if they're there to monitor extra stuff that's going on we don't know about.
It does look like a very haunted location, my friend. It looks eerie. It looks very wild in nature that, at any time you could have a bear or a cougar or a Sasquatch walk into that area. What was the energy like around there?
Oh, it's creepy. And in fact, just below, so just like south, if you keep going down the river a little bit, it's called Miracle Hot Springs. So you actually have geothermal springs, natural geothermal springs that are coming up like right against the river. And since like the 1800s, people took 3 of these geothermals and like put rocks around them. And they're literally 3 separate temperatures. So like one pool is 98 degrees, one pool is 102 degrees, one pool is 106 degrees constant. So you do have like, that energy coming out of the earth. And that alone. And especially, I always believed that Zach Bagans from Ghost Adventures when he says that. There is so much more like energy in the air whenever you get around moving water. So
do you find though that when you have that combination of paranormal activity or that paranormal feeling of energy that does relay quite a bit into being a UFO hotspot?
Probably. I definitely don't try to like cross them much anymore, because in like early episodes we did a couple ghost hunting things. I have a good relationship with the gentleman who owns a ghost town, so maybe we might do some paranormal investigation there. But I kind of try to let the ghost hunter people, the ghost hunting people, come at it from that aspect. I myself, I may not say like I believe in aliens, but I believe in ghosts 100%, like 100%, because I unfortunately like had an incident where I had been attacked by something, but it's not something like I talk about a lot or even want to be a big story. But yeah, man, if I was like a ghost hunter, I would definitely try to be at that place like every night, because something I think is going on.
It's like being at my local museum. We just had our first ghost tour of the year this past
that's awesome.
This past weekend, and raised a few $100s for the museum, as we do all the time, where we give back, to the nonprofit society. And we opened up a new building this year. And a week ago, here's a good story for you. I haven't even told the audience this. A week ago, we walked into this new building that we call the bunkhouse, where we were, just checking it out. And the minute you walked in, you were kind of hit with that vibrating energy. And I had my little guy with me who's 4. And, a lot of people would be like, oh my God, why did you take him in there? Well, I feel I can protect him. I'm confident enough in my abilities that I can protect him. So I said to my little guy, I said, do you see anybody here? And he goes, you mean ghosts? And I was like, yes. He goes, yeah. And I said, is it a man? No. Is it a woman? No. Is it a boy? He goes, yeah, I see a little boy. And my little guy's only 4, remember that. And I said, oh, well, where is he? And he goes, he's under the table. And there was an old wooden kitchen table to the left of where we were standing. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, does he want to come out? No, he wants to stay there. Okay, so during the investigation, I wasn't even in that building. I was in a different building. They actually picked up activity of a young boy and his father. How's that for confirmation?
That is crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get to the thought of the day, Tim. Hold on. Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where I ask a question to you, the audience, and you guys, either on Facebook or Twitter, follow up with an answer. So today's question for the Thought of the Day is, tell me about your best UFO sighting. And Tim, we have a couple good ones here. We have a couple of good ones. And this one starts from Robert Perala, who was actually the MC at the UFO con that I spoke at San Francisco. Robert says, it was much more than a sighting. He goes, on December 27, 1977, I was taken out of the house by what looked like 3 glowing astronauts. I was taken away to some kind of sphere. When returned, I was sunburned and covered in a honey oil-like substance. I stayed in my apartment for 3 months until I went to the first UFO conference of its type and met founder J. Allen Hynek. Maybe we should talk about it, Dave, on your show, or just come meet me at Contact in the Desert. Well, Contact hasn't contacted me yet, so we're going to just go with it. But can you imagine getting covered in some sort of material? And, I mean, you're so traumatized by that, Tim. I mean, for you, that would be like, you know, for somebody, an investigator like you, that would be one of the ultimate pieces of evidence. But for the person who has it happen, you probably don't even think and immediately hop in the shower to wash it off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. That must have been scary.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Let's get to another one here, shall we? Andrea says, mine was strange. I'm not even sure what I saw. My mom and I both witnessed it, still have zero clue. I just know after research it wasn't a plane or a helicopter based on the color or the size of the light. A lot of people are still unwanting to admit that they've seen a UFO. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, it's definitely that ridicule factor, you know. It's a tough thing. It's so stigmatized. It's, you know, and that's what I really hope to do, is hope to kind of break down that stigma and that hyper-radicalness around it, and just get more people to accept that there are so many people who have seen things. It's unbelievable.
Let's move on to another one here, as we do have time winding down. I don't understand this one at all. Maybe I'm just way too young and pretty for it. Cousin Gary in Edmonton may know. The Brady Bunch one was my favorite. Did the Brady Bunch actually do a UFO show? I don't remember.
What? Wow.
I don't remember.
I got to see that one.
He's like, that was a joke, everyone. I don't know. I don't recall the Brady...
Martian.
There you go. Yeah, and then she got the UFO to fly right into her nose to break it for like the 36th time on that show, you know.
Well, it caught the radio signal from her little braces setup thing.
Oh, that's very Gilligan's Island of you, bro. Very Gilligan's Island. Brandy says, I was 9 years old. It was about 300 feet away from me in my backyard and tipped slightly as it flew away. And there's a report on it at ufoevidence.org. Harolyn says, I've never encountered one yet. For some reason, Adam goes and posts a gnome. He does this for every question of the day, or thought of the day. He posts a picture of a gnome. I don't understand why, yet he does. We got a couple more here, Tim. Michael states, I spotted some blue-white clouds when looking over the top of the bathroom curtains one night. I didn't know what they were. The moon was up that night, and I was thinking it might have been a flock of swans or snow geese. I opened up the window and stuck my head out. The first thing I saw was a huge glowing kryptonite green cross, like in a plus symbol. It looked to see what the lights. I looked to see what the lights were, and it was the lights around the edge of the craft. The craft appeared to be matte black, and it was not reflecting the moonlight. The craft was very large and probably could have fit a couple of 747s end to end inside of it. It was gliding at a very low altitude and made no sound. When it passed behind the neighbor's trees, I ran out to the street and watched it for a few minutes until it disappeared into the haze. I was really awed by the size of this craft. I reported it to Peter Davenport on the phone.
Dang. That's freaking awesome. Yeah, that's one of the best ones I've ever heard, huh? That's a good one.
That is a good one. Bill Hauser, by the way, thank you, Bill, has posted from YouTube the Brady Bunch episode where they do see the UFO. Thanks, Bill.
Oh, my gosh. I got to check it out.
Yeah. Now I'm curious on that. Now I'm curious about that. All right, so let's get to Tessa here. It was about 10 feet from my backyard, or from my back foot. I was holding my baby boy, staring out into the snowy winter cold, thinking about Dylan Redwine, as I had just heard he had disappeared, hoping he was safe and warm somewhere. All of a sudden, out of the left peripheral vision, I saw an alien orb, 4 to 5 feet in diameter, about the same height off the ground, moving slow and steady walking pace. It appeared to have liquid yellow and orange fire flowing through it in a circular motion. I laid my son down, ran to the door and opened and stepped out with one foot. Just as soon as I set my foot down, I immediately picked it back up out of the snow into the house and shut the door. I didn't know what this was or what it would do to me. I called my family over. My 2 daughters saw the same thing as me, but to my husband, it appeared to be an orb with an unusually slow flapping in it. We were all in awe. This was the second time my daughters and I had spotted this orb. The first time, it was overhead and just to the left of us, 30 feet in the sky. I know as a paranormal investigator that this was not a ghost, but an alien orb. It was pretty epic, to say the least.
Right. I mean, that is exactly what I'm talking about right there. That is like, I swear, the key type of UFO sighting, and to think that maybe these things are almost paranormal in nature, and you kind of have that interlink, right? And that whole phase in, phase out thing, that is exactly it to the T, man.
Definitely, my friend, definitely. Tim, give us a quick rundown where everybody can find UFO Seekers.
Yeah, the best place is on YouTube. Just search UFO Seekers. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to make sure you get notifications. And then also you can follow us on Twitter or Instagram, and always at ufoseekers.com.
Appreciate that, my friend. You hang on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. We got Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Tomorrow night on the program, Misha Johnson joins us. We're going to talk Bilabs. We're going to talk MK Ultra. Her experience, if you've never heard it, will literally leave you shaking in your boots. It is true. And she's a beautiful lady, good, honest lady. Listen in tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. Want to say a big thank you to everybody listening at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. You know who you are. I'm pointing at you. I want to say a big thank you to everybody watching live on Periscope.tv. Had a lot of fun with Cousin Gary and everyone. Even the trolls made it fun tonight in there. You know, they weren't saying anything, but we got it done. Big shout out to everybody at hashtag Spaced Out Radio in the Spreaker chat room tonight. You guys were awesome. And, of course, the veterans of the SOR Space Travelers Club. Thanks for a great night. Thanks for sharing our show. Continue to help us grow by doing what you do, because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a good one. See you tomorrow. Good night.